In 1492, the King and Queen of Spain gave Christopher Columbus a parchment which was called a letter patent, which means open letter, which said, go and colonize any part of the world on our behalf. And this was based on the papal bull, and the Pope said God gave him the right to give the right to kings to take over any European Christian, it was said, European Christian princes. So if someone wasn't Christian, and if someone wasn't white, and if someone wasn't European, then take over their land. This was Columbus's discovery of America. Of course, Columbus didn't even know where he was going. He thought he was coming to India, and that's why Benki and I are both Indians. I call biopiracy the second coming of Columbus. Now, instead of land and territory, they take over life. And they take over life through claiming invention of the knowledge that they have stolen. In 1987, when the chemical industry started to say they wanted to patent seeds and patent life and put it into the World Trade Organization agreement, they wrote the treaty. I knew that they could not really know the plants because they had been making poison. So how do poison makers become plant inventors? By stealing the knowledge of indigenous cultures. And can you imagine how much there is to steal, because there's so much biodiversity and so much indigenous knowledge related to it. That's how our cultures have sustained ourselves. Through the knowledge of biodiversity, we are biodiversity economies. In 1984, a pesticide plant leaked in Bhopal, in the city of Bhopal, and killed 3,000 people immediately, 30,000 since then. I started a campaign, No More Bhopals, plant a neem, a beautiful tree that controls pests without any harm. 10 years later, in 94, I find the neem and its pest control properties has been patented. So the first thing we did is we collected 100,000 signatures across the country to say this is biopiracy. The second thing we did was take the 100,000 signatures and filed a case in the European Patent Office against the US Department of Agriculture and a company called Grace that jointly held one patent. There were 80 others. It took us 11 years to fight the neem biopiracy. But after 11 years, we defeated the world superpower and one of the biggest chemical companies in the world. We had the patent on neem recognized as piracy. In 98, we find a Texas company called Rice Tech. And they think just put tech behind anything and you can claim you're an inventor. All they did was steal the basmati from my country and my valley. In this case, we filed a case in the Supreme Court to get the court to instruct the government of India to defend our heritage. But we also started a movement in the United States, telling the United States Patent and Trademark Office, if you don't strike down this patent, we will have to rename you the US Piracy and Theft Office. August 14, 2001, that patent was struck down. And then my favorite company, Monsanto, took a patent on an ancient Indian wheat variety which has very low gluten. There are other biopiracy patents, and in this case, what the company does is they take the biodiversity and the knowledge of the people, and through a genetic modification, not for the property they are claiming, but by putting a BT gene or one toxic gene and claiming a patent on everything. Last year, 2 years ago, Monsanto had an ad all over, every paper, every magazine. 9 billion people to feed a changing climate. Now what? Making people believe that without genetic engineering, we would not have climate resilient crops. But farmers have evolved such crops over centuries. These are rices that can tolerate the salt that we have saved. The names tell you that the farmers know what they are breeding. Luna Bakra, the variety that tolerates the salt. Varieties that tolerate floods. Varieties that tolerate drought. All these are growing because of climate change. Flood, drought, cyclone. 1,500 patents by the 5 big giants on climate resilience. Goes on and on the list. They want to own the future. Even genetic engineering patents are based on piracy. In 1987, when the companies were writing the WTO rules, at that time the GATT, General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, they very clearly said we have to do genetic engineering because it's the only way we can claim we are inventing the seed and the plant. So 2 years ago we stopped the genetically engineered aubergine, eggplant, we call it brinjal. Differences of patents on seeds are huge. Patents are taken to prevent a farmer from saving seed. When a seed is patented, saving it becomes a crime. And when farmers have to buy patented seed and pay royalties because the rent is collected from the farmers, they get into debt. When Columbus started the trend of taking over other people's lands, they created disasters in our societies, genocide, poverty, famine. And the same is happening now with the takeover of seeds and life. 250,000 Indian farmers have committed suicide because of debt, mainly in the cotton areas. Most of the cotton is now owned by Monsanto. In Brazil, recently, there was a Supreme Court judgment on a case of 5 million farmers suing Monsanto for collecting royalties on farm-safe seed. And Monsanto lost. Because if I grow a seed on my own farm and save it from the harvest and grow it again, how can the company collect a royalty on farm-safe seed? When I started this work, the companies used to say, there's $1 trillion of profits to be made if every farmer has to buy seed every year because we have made seed saving illegal through patenting. $1 trillion profits for them is $1 trillion loss for communities. Every patent on life and every patent on seed is biopiracy. Either you steal from nature, centuries of evolution, and claim as your invention what evolution has given us. The second is from indigenous cultures who have the knowledge that this seed is salt tolerant, this tree gives us pest control, this medicinal plant heals this disease. The third level of biopiracy is stealing from society, because both the biodiversity and the knowledge is a commons, and when you privatize it, you are stealing the commons. That is why, while the governments do nothing, we have to act to stop this theft of life, biodiversity and knowledge through patents on life. And there's 2 other reasons why this is necessary for the future of humanity. The companies say they need the patents to do innovation, to bring us cures for disease and food to solve hunger. But as our report from Vandana on GMOs published last year says, the GMO emperor has no clothes. They say this is genetic engineering is an alternative to toxic chemicals. Toxic chemical use has increased. Brazil knows that, India knows that, America knows that. On the other hand, our seeds, our biodiversity, our knowledge gives us more food per acre, more nutrition per acre than all the industrial agriculture of the world. Our report, Health per Acre, has measured the nutritional output of farms. If we have to solve hunger and malnutrition, we have to protect biodiversity. If we have to protect biodiversity, we have to get rid of patents. And that is why I invite you all to join the campaign and become partners in the campaign we are launching for seed freedom. Seed freedom means both the fundamentals of freedom. It also means the freedom of all life to evolve freely into the future. Now, we can have these principles in our hearts and minds, but they won't make any difference if we don't act. We have to start saving our seeds in sovereignty of both the sovereignty of the seed and the knowledge that we have, and not allow it to be criminalized. We will not accept the criminalization of our seed freedom. We need to say, we do not recognize patents. They're illegitimate, illegal, immoral.